I thought Julio Jones had slipped into what I call the Bruce Willis in the Sixth Sense mode, where he's the last one to know he's retired. Spoiler alert, he was dead the whole movie. I have 24 years, probably enough time for anybody who's ever seen it. But I just assumed it was a matter of time before we got the announcement from Julio Jones, the one-day contract with the Falcons, that he was going to retire, because no one had even been linked to him. There'd been no speculation, no rumors, no Sunday splash reports that Julio Jones was going to be anywhere, anytime in the NFL. And just out of the blue, Julio Jones joins the Eagles practice squad as they ramp him up to make him part of an offense that's currently dominated by A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith at receiver. I guess they have some reps for him somewhere. They wouldn't have added him if they didn't have a plan for him, Charean. But that was one of those where I saw it and I thought, why?
Well, and they do need a third receiver with Quez Watkins has that hamstring injury and probably going to be out 4 more games. I think they put him on IR. So they are without a third receiver. They worked out Marquez Callaway and Desmond Patton on Monday. They said no to those guys, signed Julio Jones. I'm with you. A huge shock to me that they would sign him. I mean, the last 3 seasons, 9 games, 10 games, 10 games. You know, he can't stay healthy now. He's 34 years old, has those hamstring problems. And guess what, Mike? As we age, as you and I both know, it doesn't get any better. Like, your hamstrings don't just improve. You know, none of that improves as you age. And so I don't know how many games he's going to play. I don't know how many passes he's going to catch. I have a feeling it's not going to be all that many. And people get hyped up over this because they remember these players as they were, not as they are. And as he is, he's not very good at this age. He hasn't been very good for a very long time, Mike.
Yeah, it really has been several years. And I remember when the contract issues first started between him and the Falcons. 2018 is when it really became a thing. The narrative at the time was he was hanging out with some really, really, really rich people, and he needed to make more money to really hang with the really, really rich people, and different ideas were being put into his head, and he wanted more and more and more from the Falcons, and then that ultimately fizzled out, and he's bounced around since then. And you're right. The players are the last ones to admit that they can no longer do what they once did, and the fans who remember what they once did are the next to the last ones to admit that the player can no longer do what the player once did. And my guess is there was a rush on all the fantasy football waiver wires to try to get Julio Jones, just in case the Eagles know something that the other 31 teams don't. And this isn't a knock on Julio Jones. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the active leader among all NFL players in receiving yards with 13,629, catches 903. Played in 10 games for the Buccaneers last season. But just as an example of where he currently is, 24 catches in 10 games, 299 yards in 10 games. That's less than 30 yards per game, if my math is correct, and it rarely is. 2 touchdowns in 10 games last year with the Buccaneers. And I remember when he joined the Buccaneers, it was like, Tom Brady and Julio Jones. But I can see why he would do it. If he accepts what his role is going to be, he's got a chance to chase a ring. And he had the ring in his hand. It was in his hand, like Smeagol. God, that's a lame reference. And it was taken away by Frodo and thrown into the fires of Mount Doom. I'm not making it any better. When the Falcons blew the 28-3 lead in Super Bowl 51, he had it. He made that catch. He made the dagger catch. I remember being at that game, and he made that great catch along the sideline and gave the Falcons a first down. And you start doing the math, and it's like, this is over, until it wasn't. So this is his opportunity. And maybe the truth is, of all the teams contending at the highest possible level, the Eagles were the ones that made the move. Maybe he was eyeballing the 49ers. Maybe he's all eyeballing the Eagles. Maybe the Chiefs, right? Maybe the Dolphins. Not that they really have a need there, but still watching the great teams, waiting for the right moment, swooping in half a season or so, 2/3 of a season with the Eagles, and we'll see. First of all, we need to see how long it's going to take him to ramp up. Like you said, Quez Watkins out, good point by you, but it may take 4 weeks for Julio Jones to be ready to go. He's not – the first thought – and this goes back to what you were saying. We all assume he's still the guy he was. You sign him immediately to the roster. No. For the older guys, you got to put him on the practice squad first. We're not going to burn a 53-man roster spot in a guy who's not ready. We're going to ramp him up slowly. And, of course, there's that device they came up with a few years ago that allows practice squads to have a certain number of veteran players. It used to be you exhausted your eligibility in the first couple of years of your career. Now they can park him there, get him going, bring him up, maybe elevate him once or twice before they even put him on the 53-man roster. So, it's a process. And this step in the process is get this guy in football shape.
And Mike, I agree with you. I think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I know he's a Hall of Famer. I have no doubt about that. 7 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, twice led the league in receiving yards, 2015 and 2018. He led the NFL in receptions in 2015 with 136, 4 playoff berths. The question, I think, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? And obviously the one thing missing is the Super Bowl. So I do think he waited, and if he was planning to come back, I assume he's been working out with the intent to come back to a team that has a chance to win a title. And he finally decided, look, the Eagles need a receiver. It's time. I don't know if this is too early. Can he make it through a season now? We're only in week 7. Can he make it through an entire season? He hasn't shown the ability to keep those hamstrings healthy. And that's my concern for him. Is he going to be able to play the rest of this season and get to the postseason where he can potentially win that ring and help the Eagles? So that's the question. 2019 was his last Pro Bowl. That's his last 1,000-yard season. 99 catches that year, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. So it's been a while since he's been that guy. But with the Eagles, he doesn't have to be that guy. He just has to be a capable third receiver. If he stays healthy, can he do that? I don't know. But we're going to find out because that's what the Eagles are counting on at this point.
The other factor that I think boosts his Hall of Fame candidacy, whether it's first ballot, second ballot, third ballot, in his prime, he was one of those guys that would keep defensive coordinators awake, staring at the ceiling, figuring out how do we take him away. He's not just a stat compiler. He's a guy that commanded extra attention, and those are the true Hall of Fame receivers, the ones who strike fear in the heart of every defensive coach that they will be facing. And, with the hamstring injuries, when that first started, there was just that loose sense that was his way of expressing his displeasure with the Falcons. I'm just not going to practice. I don't want to practice. I don't need to practice. They're not paying me enough to go out and practice 3 times a week, whatever the case may be. But it also could be at 34 when he starts exerting extreme pressure on those muscles, something happens. You got to be careful. You got to manage his reps. There's a chance if they do this just right, Charean, big game, big spot, big moment. A.J. Brown's covered. Devontae Smith's covered. Julio Jones pops open, makes a big catch, keeps a drive going. Eagles win a game that maybe they otherwise would have lost, and it's all worth it. So we tend to defer to the wisdom of Howie Roseman in these matters because he's built a pretty damn good football team. So we assume there's a method to the apparent madness, and my first reaction when I saw it yesterday was, this does indeed seem like madness. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.